Boom. I'm excited for this one, man. All right, guys, we've got Dean DeVries, my local favorite realtor. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great, man. Thank you for having me.
Fired up, man. I'm fired up. So I want to tell our story first. You all right with me telling our story before we get into any of the coronavirus craziness? So for those of you who don't know my story, I used to sell up in Minnesota, right? I sold for what was it, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And I was a top 2% agent, got into the Army for 10 years. 10 years, man. You lose a lot of moxie in 10 years. And I said, okay, I'm going to go down to South Florida. And Benny, yes, this is Dean DeVries, man, the guy I was telling you about. So I'm going to go down to South Florida, and I'm going to interview some brokers. Well, the big brokerage I worked for was Edina Realty up in Minnesota. They didn't have any Edina Realty down here because that's a Midwestern thing, right? So I'd heard of, well, I'm not going to say the names because obviously I didn't pick the other ones, and I'm not trying to beat up on brokerages. But I met with 3, and the one that I fell in love with, and like I do know who number 1, number 2, and number 3 was, but really there was a big gap between 1 and 2. And the reason was, as much as I loved the broker at Keller Williams, I think he's a hard worker, phenomenal guy. You and I both have great relationship with him. He couldn't make it because I think he was in Tampa. So Dean met me. And so here's an agent, man, an agent who I explicitly said, I'm not going to be a team guy. So he's thinking, okay, I'm not making any money off this guy. And he still came in. I remember it was a Saturday, and you came in and I said, how much time do I have? And you said, you have as much time as you want, man. And I said, well, listen, if you offer me that, I'm going to take it because I want to learn about the CRM. How does the website work? How does the IT work? I had a million questions. And you were like, cool, let's just tackle it one at a time. And you hopped on. And I don't remember how much time you gave me, but it was way more than anyone else would give me. And I thought, man, this place is the place I want to be. So I thought I was in love with that place. And it is a great place, man. It's a great place. I love that. I love that brokerage, especially locally. Then you had gone to EXP, and we were still great buds. And you said, hey, man, we're having a mastermind down in Key West. Now, you didn't know this, but I love Key West. That's where DJ and I had our honeymoon. And it was such just great memories, you know? And anytime you have great memories somewhere, you just fall in love with that place, that person, that whatever, right? About that experience. So I love Key West. I always will. It's going to have a special place in my heart forever. And so you said, hey, let's go do a mastermind down there and we'll get a big old hotel and it's going to be a fun time. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And we got down there, and the first night we're up on top of a hotel and we're partying and we're meeting everybody. And there's, maybe 50, 60 people up there. And I'm going around like, hey, Joe Rosen with Keller Williams. And they're like, hey, I'm so-and-so with EXP. Oh, cool. Hey, I'm Joe Rosen with Keller Williams. Oh, hey, I'm so-and-so with EXP. And I went around, and pretty soon I came back to you and I'm like, dude, there's a lot of EXP guys here. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's an EXP event. And I'm like, dude, what the hell? You didn't tell me this was a recruiting deal. And you're like, no, this isn't a recruiting deal. I promise you. It's just, it's filled with EXP people. So who do we got to sell? You, that's it. So, don't worry about it. I was like, oh, okay. And it was like, it was a group of 50, 60 people. And from memory, there were only a handful of us, 5 who were not with EXP. And the people I met in that room have been life-changing, man. Those people were amazing. Just Nick Good has been a great friend and his whole little slew of podcast studs over there in Texas. And Michael Reese and Jay have really helped me a ton out of Texas. A ton. I actually talked with Jay Kinder the other day, and he was, I got to talk to you about what we were talking about, but the guy is so helpful. And this is a guy who was the number 2 Coldwell Banker agent on the planet. And he gave me loads of time, man. Great information. Just a great guy. And Carlos up in Orlando has been phenomenal. Veronica up there has been like big studs who have no time are giving me loads of time. And it is so helpful. So, that is my story of how I really met Dean. And, I'm just touching on really the tip of the iceberg here because our relationship really goes so deep because we've had so many great conversations. You still haven't gotten the video out on your podcast, have you? That we did maybe 2 weeks ago?
No, not yet.
It was a phenomenal conversation. Way better conversation than we're gonna have on my podcast. Yeah, we just talk about this kind of stuff up here.
Oh, dude, no, I'm committed to making this much better.
We're getting this deep. Okay, all right, baby, let's do it. But I have had just such a great experience with you, and there's only a handful of people I've ever met who think like you, who put in the effort that you do. And I'm not talking about hard work, man. I'm talking about being engaged in a conversation and truly caring about the person that you're sitting next to. You know, so many people are bird, squirrel, and they don't pay attention. And you are so engaged with everybody you talk to. And, you know, that thumbnail I made, what did it say? You were one of the brightest minds in real estate. That's no joke, man. That's no joke. I think you're one of the sharpest dudes I've ever met. So thank you so much for coming. Man, that's the longest introduction I think I've ever had.
Wow. Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, that really means a lot. I appreciate you, brother. I love you very much. And it's just been an honor to go along on this journey with you. And it's been fun, man. And Key West has a special place for me too.
Really?
Because that's where this chapter of our journey begun.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that was just a wonderful time. You know, we're just surrounded with so many great people, and you know, I think that's the most important thing. There's something that our buddy Greg over at Grand Construction, he posted something on his Facebook this morning, and it said, "Tough times don't last, but tough people do." You know, and that just reminded me of like our tribe. And just the importance of being surrounded with the right people.
Yeah. You know, I'm in a lot of real estate groups on Facebook, and it's funny, the questions that are posted by different people, you know, you tend to, sometimes you get the deeper questions, but you tend to get questions that just the question alone makes me think they're in the wrong place mentally, you know? I mean, right now people are asking the most ridiculous questions about the coronavirus. And are we all going to go bankrupt? Is this the end of real estate? And I'm like, whoa, like this is called a tough time, and you're going to have it every couple of years. And if you think like it sucks for everybody. There's no, and I'm not just talking financially. I mean, people are going to die. Like things are going to happen. It's going to suck. It's not fun. But you really choose how you react to all this stuff. You don't choose what happens to you all the time, but you choose how to react. You choose how to plan. You choose how to prepare. And I really think that the people who are preparing themselves right now, who have already thought about how they're going to handle this, those people are going to crush it, man. And those people are a lot of the people that you and I are hanging around with.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, a few things that come up for me are, you know, whatever story we tell ourselves,
yes,
we will believe it. You know, and we have a part of our brain called the reticular activating system that is constantly looking for reasons to validate the story that's playing in the background, whether it be conscious or unconscious. Most of the time it's actually unconscious. And sometimes people's questions come from that level of consciousness. So if the question is a disempowering question, it's usually because they have a disempowering story. But if they're looking for an answer to an empowering question, like, hey, where is the opportunity right now?
Yeah.
You know, versus like, you know, what happens if I get the virus, or you know, and looking at a disempowering outcome or a disempowering story, that you could just tell where that question is coming from. And, you know, I think that the quality of the answer always comes from the quality of the question. You know, is it an empowering question that we're asking, or is it a disempowering question, which is then a reveal in what's actually going on in our awareness?
So give me an example of an empowering question and a disempowering question.
So, you know, usually the disempowering questions start with like, what if, you know, you know, what if,
a horrendous thing to ask yourself. Yeah,
exactly. You know, and so, and we all have versions of that. Yep. You know, what if this happens? Yep. And it's coming from that place of fear, where actually the answer will just bring in more fear.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like we're looking for a reason to get into more of a fearful state.
It's exactly it. Yeah.
So, and sometimes people's comfort zone is being in that fearful state. And there's lots of reasons why somebody can be like that. Oftentimes it comes from our childhood, you know, and just things that happen. But, you know, sometimes our default mode is being in a fearful state. it actually is easier to be in a fearful state because, our brain is meant to manufacture the fear. Our brain is a wonderful piece of technology. But, our brain physiologically hasn't really evolved that much over the last several, tens of thousands of years.
Yeah.
And so where fear used to serve us, for example, running from a saber-toothed tiger, that isn't a real threat anymore. However, that mechanism is still going active in our brain.
Yeah.
And so, when that's the case, our brain is going to find ways to implement that mechanism and find something to fear, because that's the only way that the brain keeps us in survival mode. That's really all the brain is meant to do, is to keep us alive, not to make us happy, and not to make us thrive and live with abundance. It's meant to just keep us from, from dying. And so that fear mechanism is kind of, it's very powerful. It's the part of us, and especially we live in a society where we're in our brain most of the time. And what we were just talking about pre-show here was, I think some of the work that we're doing, which is kind of camouflaged as a real estate company, is we're helping people tap into their heart center more, and come from that place of abundance, which really is in our hearts, versus our brain. Because if we if we let this lead and hope that our heart will support it, it doesn't work like that, at least most of the time. But if we lead with our hearts and just trust that our brain will support it, our brain will figure out the ways to do it. But we really have to come from this place versus here.
Yeah, and I want to get a little bit deeper with that too. I'm going to get into our next topic here, which is I want to talk about specifically, there's a lot of things going on right now, but really a lot of the fear, the crisis, the whatever it is you feel is going on right now stems from the coronavirus, right? Like, we got an election coming up. We've got rates going all over the place. We got Fed rate going to damn near zero. We've got just all kinds of things going on. But really the big scary thing for everybody, the thing everybody's talking about, is coronavirus. I want to talk about your and my opinions on how a seller should be looking at this right now, how a buyer should be looking at it. And then last, I want to talk about how a realtor should be addressing this. So let's start with sellers. If you've got a seller right now and they're coming up to you in this market today, right after the show, and they say, Dean, I'm thinking about selling my home, but I don't know if this is quite the market I want to do it in. What are you going to tell them?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's based on so much of their situation, like if they are in a situation where they really need to sell, well, it doesn't matter what's going on in the market. I mean, if you look back in, the worst economy of recent, back in 2008, 9, 10, there were still transactions happening. That didn't slow that. I mean, it slowed down a little bit, but there was still activity happening. People still needed to move from one place to another. People still needed to downsize. People still needed to upsize. People still needed to get into a different school district or, move because of a job transfer. So, in those cases, it's, I think that person is still going to have to do what they need to do in order to ultimately help them achieve their goals. And, that's, every consultation I have, pre-coronavirus and now, it doesn't matter. Like, I think the way that we serve our client is really understanding where they are and what's most important to them. So like one of my favorite questions that I like to ask is like, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And how is this move going to help you get closer to that? And a lot of times there's, not really a whole lot of clarity, but asking the question, again, it's activating the reticular activating system, which is like, let's find the answer together. Let's problem solve to get you to that next place. So I think, this is a time for, for sellers that really need to sell. This is, the time is always now. Doesn't matter what the economic environment is. If you have to sell, you have to sell. if it's a matter of, if you're an investor and you're sitting on a bunch of properties and you're worried about the, real estate market going down, well, that might be true.
Yeah.
And, that might be a good time to, to work on offloading that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, hey, if you buy a house or if you have a house right now and you hold it for the next decade, you're going to be fine.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what happens between now and then.
Yep.
You're good.
Yeah.
So, the other thing too is that a lot of sellers are, waiting for their price to go up and, in order to make the next move.
Yeah.
And, anytime that you're selling to the market and then buying back into the market, it's just like, anything else. It's like, buying or selling, some of your stock and then buying back in again. It's going to be, it's going to be pretty relative. Yeah. So if you're waiting for your house to be worth more in order to make that next move to get into your dream home, if that's where you're at in life, maybe that's not where you're at. And if that's the case, there might be a different plan. But if your goal, if it's really important for you to get into that next home, just do it. Because, if you wait until your price goes up, it's going to feel good selling at a higher price, but it's also going to feel equally as not good to buy at a higher price, because as your house goes up, so is the house that you're going to buy as well.
Yeah. And most people buy up, right? So if you're selling a $300,000 home, you're buying a $400,000 home. And if the market just went up 10%, you're happy that your 300 is worth 330 now. Cool. I made 30 grand, but now you're paying 440 for that 400. So you just lost $10,000 net. So I agree with you 100%. And I get the excitement, but when you look at the actual, like the entire process from beginning to end, you do the math and you actually get into the details, you're 100% right, man. I think it is such a rarity, unfortunately, to see people like, dude, one of the biggest compliments I think I can give you as a professional, not as a friend, even as a friend, is you ask such great, engaging questions. I think that so many realtors, salesmen, car salesmen, whoever, you read the books, you go to the events, you watch the YouTube videos, and you see people, I hate this term, handle objections. How do you handle this objection? How do you handle this objection? And I think the answer to that from a sales standpoint, like the best advice I can give people when they ask me that, salesmen, is quit thinking about handling damn objections and think about their problem from their point of view. And if you were in their shoes with their circumstances, their goals, what would you do? You're the one with the knowledge. What would you do? And that's whether that gets you a sale, doesn't get you a sale. They buy a 300, they buy a 250. That, like, just think that way. And that's how you handle an objection. I hate that phrase, but you ask such great, engaging questions. And a lot of times you have no problem pulling away from the sale if that's where the questions take you. Or, like you and I, we always think, or at least I think, you probably know exactly where we're going. I always think I know where the conversation's going. And then you take me into some deep, dark cavern of my brain and you really get me thinking, man. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate the way your brain works.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. And, a lot of this is just, the practice. I practice nonstop of, this is just how I am. Like, if you have a conversation with me, this is just who I am, because one of the things that I try to, that I really try to embody is, don't worry about being interesting, just be interested.
Yes.
And the other adage that kind of goes along with that is that people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a great salesperson, just show that you care.
Yeah.
Just be really engaged in who they are, where they are, and where they want to be. And, actually, we had a great conversation the other day, right before you were about to take a phone call. And one of the things that I love doing is really tapping into I'm fascinated by human beings. I think, and that's why I nerd out on all this reticular activating stuff, because I'm just fascinated, and Tony Robbins really got me on this, is why do people do the things that they do?
Yep.
whether it be consciously and unconsciously, and then also breaking that down as well. Why do we do things unconsciously? And why do we do things consciously? And also, the opposite. And, what's just really interesting to me is, is tapping into the pain that people have that they want to get away from, and also the pleasure that they want to move towards. Because and this is a Tony Robbins principle. He calls it the pain pleasure principle. We're either running away from pain or moving towards pleasure. And so in my conversations, I just really want to tap into that, because I know that that's the place that they're coming from with every decision. And if I can tap into them with them, and I can guide them through that and be there with them. And that's really what I think, that's what a great salesperson does is, sales is not something you do to somebody. It's something you do for and with somebody.
Yes.
You're right there with them. Like, hey, I got you. Let's do this together. We're on the journey together. I know where you're at. I know what you're afraid of. I know what you're motivated by.
Yep.
I know where you want to go. So let's go.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between a great salesperson and a not so great salesperson.
Yeah.
A great salesperson is not high pressure and pushy. The way that we teach sales on our team is like, no, just ask how people really are doing.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like sales, but
it's easy, really, man.
What it is.
Yeah. I think the toughest part about that, because people genuinely are authentic and caring and nice when it's your brother, when it's your friend, when it's your mom. Like if it was your grandma on every transaction, you wouldn't give a damn if you sold her a house. You'd be like, Grandma, I'm going to take care of you. Like, let's just, it doesn't matter. But I think so many people get into it, and it's really tough for a lot of people, especially if you're new, to build that instant rapport with people, because they think that building rapport is a manipulated experience where I talk about the trophies you have on your shelf, and then you automatically give me 3 points because you like me. And it's, dude, this isn't a video game. You literally just, like, if you care about their trophies, ask them a question about you don't give a damn about their trophies, ask them about their shoes or whatever it is you do care about. But just listen, if you can't find a genuine way to connect with someone, like something you genuinely are interested in, I mean, you might want to question why you're in sales, but I think that it's really not as challenging as people make it out to be, as salesmen make it out to be. You just have to slow down, forget about selling, and just ask great questions that you genuinely care about.
That's it. Well, I know that you like to give some nuggets on this show. And so, like, some of my favorite questions to get in rapport with somebody is, and if you see the trophies and you want to talk about that, like, obviously if there's 100 trophies sitting around the room, that's pretty important to them. Yeah. So I'd just be curious, even though I'm like, I don't even know what those trophies are for. Maybe you do. And you're like, I don't even know what sport that is.
Yeah.
Just asking the question, hey, so why is that important to you?
Yeah. But Dean, the thing about you, man, that makes you unique is that you aren't asking to build rapport. You're asking because you just genuinely are interested. And I think that a lot of people will look at someone like you and they're like, I don't get how you talk the way you talk. I don't get how you approach the people the way you approach people. And so here's something I struggle with as a coach, right, of other people, is how do you coach someone to be genuinely interested in somebody else? Like, how do you coach that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's also a level of trust in our own authenticity.
Yes.
That's needed for that, because if we don't trust ourselves to be authentic to ourselves, which I know it sounds so convoluted, but our brain is convoluted. Yeah. We will twist a belief system and, try to fit it on a bunch of different ways until we could find a way to believe that it fits.
To fit our story. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's really important. And personal development is really all about remembering who we really are, and trusting in ourselves. Because if we don't trust ourselves, we're not going to be able to show up authentically for people. Yeah. And that's really what leadership, I think that's a fundamental idea of leadership is, you can't be trusted if you don't trust yourself.
Yes.
So like I'll engage in a really deep conversation with somebody right off the gates, not I'm not afraid. Like I trust myself to have that conversation, and I also trust that conversation to serve them. And, it's all about how confident we are, and if we have the confidence in ourselves, it doesn't matter what questions we're asking or how we're building rapport. If we're just genuinely interested, just trust yourself to ask whatever questions are coming up for you. Like what would be really important for you to know if you wanted to be more interested in that person?
Yeah. I remember when I was in my 20s and I was a younger salesman, and then I was a salesman, right? All I was thinking was, what words can I say to get this person to buy or sell this house? That's what I was thinking. And I think when you come at it with that approach, it is, oh man, I lost my train of thought now. What did you just say? I lost my whole train of thought.
Well, I can relate to that, by the way. I was that type of salesperson as well.
Yeah.
Somebody that wasn't really interested in them, but more interested in serving my achievement.
Yes.
I just wanted to make the sale. I wanted to make the income. I wanted to, really what I was doing is I was serving my ego, because I knew that making more sales would make more income. Then I could drive the fancy cars. I could pick up more chicks. I could, do all the things that a young, 21, 22-year-old that was making more money than I really had the maturity to handle. Yeah. Like I totally understand that place. And I think that's a great journey to go through, because you have to experience that. And then once you reach that level and realize, wow, this isn't as fulfilling that as I thought it was going to be. Like, why does it not feel good? Why does it still feel like it did when I wasn't achieving?
Yeah, it's so true. Tony Robbins says it best. You're either giving, you're growing, or you're dying. And I really think that so many people think that money, success, fame, your name is what you want to chase. And those things might be fun short term, but long term, it's really, like you and I talk about this all the time, man. It's never the result. It's not making 100 grand. It's not making 500 grand. It's not making $1 million. It's not selling 100 a year. It's awesome to have that goal, and it's super cool to achieve that goal. But the day you achieve that goal is the day that goal's now empty. Like you need a new goal. You need something else to chase. You need something bigger, better, more challenging, or you're just going to get bored again. Like that's just life. So I've seen so many interviews with multi-millionaires, billionaires, and they'll all tell you, money's cool, solves a lot of problems, but it really isn't the key to happiness. A lot of the things that got me to that multi-millions or billions of dollars is really making me happy, right? Which is the journey. It's all the hurdles that you overcome and the processes you got to build to get through them, and the systems and the people that you align yourself with, and the trust and the failures, but then the overcoming, and then you finally reach it against all odds. Like that story is what's fun, man. That is what's just truly captivating and inspiring for people.
Yeah. It's all about the journey, man.
Yeah.
If you don't enjoy the journey, like there's really nothing, you won't find joy in anything, because, every experience that we go through is always a perfectly crafted curriculum by, whatever greater power you believe there is, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. It's a perfectly crafted curriculum for us to go through the things that we need to go through in order for us to evolve. And I lost my train of thought too.
Awesome. So let's take it to the next one. So we talked about buyers, we talked about sellers. I want to get into realtors, right? And, we're talking about realtors because I'm a realtor, you're a realtor, and I got a lot of realtors that follow me. But honestly, I think what we're about to talk about in a different way will probably apply to anybody who runs a small business right now. So what should a realtor, in your opinion, what are the top 2 or 3 things that they should be focusing on over the coming weeks while we're dealing with this?
Well, kind of touching on what we were talking about a few minutes ago with, coming from that heart-centered place, what a great opportunity to connect with people as people.
Yeah.
And people do business with people that they know, like, and trust.
Yes.
And this is a relationship business that we're in as realtors. But really if you're a salesperson, if you're a business owner, which if you're a business owner, you're also a salesperson, at least in some capacity. And you've got people that you serve, and you also have people that you have served in the past. And what what better of a time is there to reach out and say, hey, I'm not calling you for business.
Yep.
In fact, it's even okay to just be like, I have no value to offer you. I'm just genuinely interested in how you and your family are doing.
Yeah. Yep. And I think a lot of realtors anybody would respond to that and be like, well, why would I make that call? Like, how is that making me money? And now correct me if I'm wrong. You and I are not coming from a place of greed and money. And I think you and I both, well, it's going to give away my point. So I'll just get to my point. I really think even if you are that greedy salesman and that's what you're looking for, those calls are still worth it, man, because you and I always say, if you just do the right thing with the right intent, the right heart, the right backing, and you're always worried about how do I help this person instead of how do I close on a deal, the money follows. I mean, it all follows. You just need to worry about people instead of your paycheck. And honestly, that's going to do so much for your bottom line. So if you are greedy and that's all you're trying to get out of this, that is still the best advice. It is. Yeah. Just care about people. How can I help you?
Yeah. And in times like this, and it holds true all the time, but especially in elevated emotional states of, just where we are in society.
Yeah.
It exacerbates the place that we come from. We're either coming from one of two places. We're either coming from scarcity or fear, or we're coming from abundance, and if we're coming from that place of abundance, if we come from abundance, we create abundance. And if you ask, just to touch on your point from earlier, success and financial freedom and all of those things on the other side of what you believe you want, that's only going to come into your life because of the person that you are. You attract that because of the person that you are, versus, coming from a place of scarcity, like I need more deals. Like I'm going to, and kind of coming from like, that's not going to make me any money. Like if you're focused on that, I mean, first of all, I wouldn't want to live in that state. Like I feel bad for you. Like I'm not disappointed in you for feeling that. I'm just disappointed for you, like just
it's normal.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people start, right? Because that's socially accepted. It's normal. To think the way that you and I think is not normal. It's unique.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get people into that mindset, if you can even give them a taste and they'll buy into it for a short period of time, it's life-changing, man.
Yeah.
Like you and I both don't care about how many sales we do this year. It's fun. It's super exciting. It's fun to be competitive, but it matters so much more. Like for you, you've got a team of my favorite people in this city. And you tell me, honestly, would it be more fun to increase the amount of commissions you bring home this year? Or would it be more fun, assuming your commissions go down a little bit, right? That's your only choice, to see all your guys do what they want to do and achieve their goals? Which one's going to fill your heart more? Which one are you going to feel better about?
The latter, for sure. I mean, it feels better for, like, I still am in production. It feels so much better to watch them make a sale on for them than it does to make a sale for me. I mean, I feel good for my client, but I'm like, to see the experience that they have with, getting, especially like one of their first deals. Like, that is super exciting for me.
The confidence
to be a part of. Yeah. And it's just like, they believe that anything's possible. And what I get really excited about just in general is transformation. I've committed my life to transformation, and my transformation will never stop until the day that I die. And I crave transformation in every area. And when I see transformation in others, that's what fills me up. That just lights me up. And so I just want to be around people that are transforming. And I have full trust in the universe to, bring the financial abundance that I'm waiting for. And actually, when I stopped caring about how much money I was making, my income went up. And so, it does require trust, like, how can I trust that if I'm just giving away the house here, or just giving away my time, or just giving away my, I mean, there's so many examples that I can go through of like how you can how you can give, and how like Tony Robbins, like we need to give him credit on this episode. Like we're just bringing him in so much.
Okay,
Tony Robbins said that, the secret to living is giving.
Yeah.
And that is the embodiment of abundance. So like when you came into Keller Williams, I didn't know who you were, but I was like, yeah, if I can help, if I can impact you in some way, shape, or form. And I didn't know it was going to end up, like this, but I had trust that this was going to happen. I didn't know that you were one of the characters, but I knew that this story was going to play out, because I just trusted that if I just help enough people get what they want, I don't have to worry about getting what I want. That's going to happen automatically. So I'm just focused on serving the crap out of people.
Yep. 100%, man. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to give realtors the 4 things that I think they should be doing over the coming weeks. And I'll pause after each one. I'd love to hear your response on them. How's that sound?
Awesome.
Number 1 is, oh man, I don't know if I can say that's the biggest one. Tangibly, I think it's the most important, and it's prospecting. And I think that right now, I'm a big cold call guy. Right now, I'd love to watch you door knock. Like people are probably not going to be excited about you knocking on their doors. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I'm saying I like cold calling, but I think that cold calling is the most efficient way in any market. Right now, it's unquestionably the way to go. And the way I've got my system set up, I'm averaging 141 calls an hour. You can call. I'm planning on calling 10% of this city this year, and it is a 200,000 person city. And I'm pretty fired up about that. That's pretty damn cool. So I think that this is a lot of people don't have showings. They don't have listings. They don't have, whatever that pulls them out of their office. Awesome. You're either out of your office with people or you're on the phones talking to new people, period. So I think that this is the time to get that funnel set up for, it was you and me before we get on here where I was talking about a Minnesota winner, right? I don't want to tell the story a second time. Okay. So I was saying in Minnesota, when I sold up there, you've got the winter, right? From roughly November to February. And if you call a lot of people in that time, they're going to say the same thing. Hey, it's too cold out. Everybody's focused on Christmas. Call me back in March and I'll sell in March. Okay, cool. So you put them on your CRM, boom, call them in March. And what happens is you get a lot of that November, December, January, February. And then about that first week in February, you've got 1 week where you call all those people and you say, hey, we're 4 weeks out from the first week in March. That's the biggest week to sell. How can I help you? And that is where you make all your appointments, right? But if you don't do all those calls, you don't have a first week of February. Well, the same thing is going on right now. People don't necessarily want to get out there, whether they should be or not be. They don't want to get out there and buy. They don't necessarily want to get out there and sell. So now is the time to get on the phones and get those people on your CRM. And I said this morning in the 7-Eleven accountability group, mark them on your CRM as pure fire. Like that's the tag you should give these guys. Because once this thing passes and they say, hey, everything's open, you guys can feel safe going out in the community, that day for you is going to be pure fire, because you're going to call all those people that said, I might do something, but I'm just not interested until it passes. And that is going to be pure fire for you. So I thought that was an awesome tag. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I love it. Those are some great points. And when people are contracting, it's actually a really weird word when we're in the midst of a virus pandemic here. But when people are contracting in the sense of, they're kind of, they're decreasing the level of action that they're taking,
yes,
because of fear, that is a wonderful opportunity for you. And I'll just, I'll challenge everybody that's watching to this. Like, how can you expand? How can you be, even more out there, building relationships, prospecting to, this is a time where, we're constantly, as realtors, we're constantly like competing for that mind share. It's like market share is actually mind share. If you can be 100%. At the top of somebody's mind, then that's it. You've got it. Like when people think about real estate and you come to mind, that's the goal.
Yep.
So if you can use this time where you're doing what everybody else is not doing, which is prospecting and expanding, then that's just going to be, a great opportunity for you. And that taps into the wisdom of Warren Buffett. He said that when people are greedy, be fearful. And when people are fearful, be greedy. And I think he was talking about that concept.
Yes. So my second thing that I think realtors need to be doing is, and there's two parts to this, have an authentic message ready for buyers and sellers. And I'm not saying a canned message, right? I don't want this to be manipulated. I don't want it to be fake. But right now, when I talk to realtors and I'm like, what do you think buyers should do? What do you think sellers should do? A lot of them are replying, man, I don't know. I don't know what I think. What do you think? And I think, well, you should probably have this internal conversation with yourself, because you are looked at as the guide in this market. People look to you and they trust you. So, the second part of that, I would say, is don't just make an opinion, back it up with statistics. So I actually looked up today, and I looked up 7, 8, and 9 days ago, right? That 3-day period, there were 22 pendings. Now, you got to remember, too, because as I go through here, they drop a little bit, but I think a part of that drop is Corona. I think another part of that is, if I get a pending today, it might not be entered until tomorrow, right? So you might be missing a couple there. So there were 22 pendings in Port St. Lucie on days 7 through 9 ago, right? When you look at days 4 through 6 ago, there were 13. When you look at days 1 through 3 ago, there were 15. So the last 2 3-day periods were pretty similar. And actually, this 3-day period was a little bit higher. And there's got to be a couple that just haven't been entered. So the pendings are still happening. They're still happening. If you get people who have to buy, who have to sell, and my gosh, if you are a realtor, quit making up the excuse that there's no business, so I'm going to stay home and play video games. There is plenty of business. Work, and you will find it. Don't, and Dean will find it. It doesn't matter. You pick. I know what Dean would prefer, but you pick. Yeah. So what do you think of that? The message?
Yeah, I think, and those 15 over the last, you said it was 15 over the last few days, like 2 3 days?
3 days. Yeah.
Last 3 days. So over the last 3 days, we had 4 of those, so we're seeing that in our business. Like, things aren't slowing down,
Yeah, baby.
People still need to buy and sell. Again, it's because we know our client. What's that?
You had 4 of those. I had 2 of those. That means you and
we're like almost half of the market right here.
Of the city. All right, man.
That's awesome, man. So, yeah, I think it all goes back to really knowing who your client is and what they want, what they need, understanding where they're going, and you can come from a place of authenticity and say, well, if this is, and by the way, the conversations are all about questions like, okay, well, what if you knew that, this was the time to sell and you didn't, how would that impact you?
That's a great question.
Like, I always like asking the questions like, if condition, then, question. Because that's how you get a really good understanding of where somebody's at, and try to be as objective as possible. Because if you don't put that condition in place, then they're only going to see things from their own perspective. And it's not a manipulative thing at all. It's really just understanding where they are coming from.
Yeah.
So that I can put myself in their shoes.
Yep.
So yeah, I think those are great points.
All right. Number 3, watch expenses. And I think that, maybe this week people are huddling around in their house and you can't buy anything even if you wanted to, right? Because all the shelves are barren. But there's going to be a point where, well, I'll just say this. I mean, you can go out, and I'm guilty of this too, man. My wife and I get a coffee every single morning. I don't know what those coffees cost, but they're way more expensive than they would cost if we did it at home. Mm-hmm. And you go to eat a little bit more. Now, I guess you have it delivered. Maybe you buy that $25,000 car instead of the $15,000 car. I think that these are the times when the people who make it, and you hear about it 3, 4, 5 years after they made it, when they talk about times like these, and we don't know if this is going to be 1 month or 18 months, we have no idea. They always say, they don't say I was just going crazy and buying boats and they say, hey, listen, I tightened the belt and I made it happen. I figured out how to make it. Like, what do we need to spend money on? Let's cut the rest and let's be smart about our money. And you know what you're spending money on right now that, maybe you're spending it because it's a really good market. But if it wasn't such a good market, you'd tighten up on. I think the quicker you get a handle on that, at least short term, until we see what's going on, the better. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the time is now for that for sure.
Yeah.
And, cut expenses on the things that don't add, like don't do anything that's going to take away from your business. Like I was, a buddy of mine posted something on Facebook and said that, and he was like a top salesperson for his company, and they started laying off his salespeople. And I'm like, what? Like, why? Like, if you're worried about not making enough sales, like who do you need more of, and I just didn't get it. And so like, this is also a time, to like, I'm in terms of, just overall strategy. I think it's important to be cautious and just be, constantly be, keep your ear to the ground, so to speak, and just keep a really good pulse of what's going on. But I definitely plan on, increasing some areas of our budget to develop more relationships, because the relationships are the key. Without relationships, there's nothing else that happens. And so if we're doing more things to get into more conversations with people and get more opportunities to build relationships, we have an online presence, and we'll usually connect with, a couple hundred new people every single month, as a team. And, we know that we'll need more of that, in times of uncertainty. If we have less, if we have less people in the overall market that are, that are making a move, we're just going to have to develop even more relationships. So I think that's key, like definitely double down on that part of it. Don't necessarily spend, like there's free ways to be able to do that, but increase your action in terms of relationships, and decrease the spending on anything that fuels either the ego or fuels something that doesn't positively impact your
coffee addiction. Yeah.
I mean, there's a better way of doing that.
There is.
So I mean, you're paying for convenience, but and that's obviously a personal decision. But I mean, if you think that that's an area where you can cut things out, that's a great example.
Yeah. This is not my fourth thing out of four, but I do want to touch on this because you brought up, you were talking about your buddy on, was it Facebook, the salesman who was, and it got me to thinking about a question that I was just asked the other day. And I get this question all the doggone time is, Joe, you moved down to Port St. Lucie from Washington State, and you instantly had this big social media presence. How did you do it? And I think a lot of people hear me say, I sent out 7,000 friend requests and about 55-60% got back. And I sent this video out. It was 48 seconds to kind of introduce myself and ask about, where are the good schools, where are the good locations to live, where are the good restaurants. And I think they hear that and they're like, cool, I'm going to send out 7,000 requests and I'm going to push them over to my business page and I'm going to, build a video. But really all of that kind of sets the stage. But if you want to turn it into, I guess right now we're talking about social media, but really the long term for that is to build business, right? The trick is the discussions in the DMs, and it's not just, hey, have you ever thought about buying a house? Could I be your realtor? Like that's not, I rarely have anything like that come out of my mouth when I'm talking with people. It's always me really focusing in on, I mean, a lot of these people have small businesses or they're managing small businesses. And it's like, cool. Well, listen, I've got a presence. Yeah, how can I come over? Like if you genuinely have what I feel is a great business, great product, a great service, whatever, let's do some lunch. Let's look at it. And if it's something I can pump up for you, let's go pump it up. Maybe I know somebody who can help you. But it's those genuine conversations that take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of engagement. I mean, that's really where it's coming from. I see a lot of people too. I talk about cold calling all the time, and they'll go cold call and their numbers just aren't as good. And when you look at how they're making the cold calls, everybody sucks at first. I suck too. And there's still things about my cold calling that sucks. And I need to work on it, make it better forever. And that'll never change. I don't care if I'm the best cold caller on the planet. I need to keep working on how to build that rapport better with people and instantly start caring about what they're talking about and ask them great questions. But I think that you really need to get in the habit of genuinely caring about people, like we said before. And that's such a tough skill to coach, to genuinely care about people, because they hear, oh, you mean ask them questions that'll lead to a sale. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, forget about the sale. And when they talk about how business is tough right now, ask them, what do you mean tough? What's the difference between now and before? How can I help you? You know, I can connect you with this person and it might help both of you guys. Would you like that connection? And you, like, I'm not even talking about I don't give a damn about real estate. And when you think like that, when you care like that, when you help like that, the connections just come, the real estate comes, the transactions come, the money, all those things that you were being greedy about come if you just get rid of the greed and you truly help people.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, let's get into number 4. Number 4. And this really is, well, I'll just get into it. Be a leader, right? Be a community leader, because I feel like that's what you are as a realtor. You brought this up at the beginning, right? You said we're not really in the business of real estate. Like, that's kind of the facade of the business. Really, we're in the business of helping people, right? And I look at that too, with not just me as a business person or a realtor. I look at that like that's my life's goal, is to just help people. I want to help people get better. I want to help people grow their business. I had a guy the other day. I said, get over here and we actually scheduled something. I'm going to help you build your business plan. We're going to cold call, because he said he didn't like cold calls. I said, you can use my account. You don't have to pay for it. We'll cold call. I'll make a video if you want. I'll pump you up, my competitor. And he's like, why would you do that if I'm a competitor? He was expecting me to charge him or recruit him. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, because if you are the number one agent in this market, my market, you're probably not doing 1% of the sales. And if you're not doing like, I'm never, it no way impacts me how good you are, other than the fact that I get joy from it. And I feel like I added to that. So if I can help you, that's awesome, man. And maybe something will come out of that. Maybe it won't. And it just doesn't matter. But that genuinity, I don't know if that's a word, let's just go with genuinity.
I like
it. Thank you. I appreciate
Rhymes
that.
with infinity.
That's what I'm talking about, baby. That's why I picked it. That is what feeds me, man. Just getting people wherever they're at and pumping them up and getting them better. And some people have got a load of potential. Some people have got a little less potential. I don't care where your ceiling is. Dude, all right, I'm getting off on like 3,000 tangents. I just did a video with the amazing Mariah Mortar the other day, right? She came over. Did you see it? Did you see the cold call video?
Yeah, I saw. I was trying to get to the part where she was doing the actual cold calling, and that was great, man. You did wonderful with her.
So nervous as hell, right? She was nervous. Sweet girl, great person, trustworthy, just awesome, right? But just scared out of her wits to do cold calls, which is not unique to her, right? That's probably 95% of people when they first start. But she did it. She did it. And when I posted that on YouTube, I got a comment from some guy who said, essentially, how dare you do that? She's never going to cold call now. She should be a buyer's agent. And I was like, you know, you have some limiting, I didn't say all this, but I thought you have limiting beliefs in your head. And this is probably a reflection of yourself, right? And you probably limit yourself and you justify it with the story that you tell yourself. But in reality, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't care. I think Mariah is so sweet and so caring and so genuine. She could be an absolute rock star if she wanted to. She'll choose. It's up to her. It's not up to you. It's not up to me. She'll choose. But if I can give her one more tool for her tool belt, and if it just has the opportunity of helping her, there's no way I'm going to feel bad about that. Or like, dude, she can do whatever her grown ass wants with that tool I just gave her. But I was excited, happy, proud to give her that tool. And I thought it's really interesting, the limiting beliefs that others place on people, you know?
Yeah. And dude, what you did, man, was so awesome. And I think that, you know, like I can really appreciate that. I try to be like that all the time with every single person. Like we have a saying on our team where it's like, leave everyone and everything better than you found them.
Yes.
And if that's all we did as an entire society, imagine if every single person had that intention on this planet, how radically different this place would be.
Yes.
Like it would be like, to be a human would mean so many different and probably better things.
Yes, absolutely better things. Yeah. And I always think about being on my deathbed in my 80s. Am I going to be telling my great grandchildren about the giant commission check I made back in 2020? Or am I going to be talking about how I took Mariah and turned her into a cold calling stud, and she went from making X amount of dollars to 10X, and I had a part in that? I was the spark that fueled that fire.
Yeah.
I mean, that is something that would make my chest puff up. I'm not going to remember. I don't remember any. Well, I remember the biggest one I made ever, but the story, honestly, okay, here's another great point. With the biggest check I ever made in real estate, I've told that story 3,000 times. I don't think I've ever told the check amount, because it's the story, it's the lead up that's fun. And it's all the little hurdles that I had to overcome, knowing like I got this big payday. I got to make this happen. I got to make it happen for me. I got to make it happen for the client. I got to make it happen for the lender. I got to like, there were so many things involved that make that a fun story. But the money is never the fun part about it. You know, it's the journey. Like you said, man, it's all the overcoming of the hurdles, the interactions, the adversity that make it fun. That's what you find pride and excitement in, or at least me.
Totally. Yeah, I agree, man. That's what it's all about.
So my fourth thing is be a leader and help your community and really reach out. You've got social media. And people are just sitting at home. And this is exactly, you and me right now are both in Port St. Lucie. We both know a lot of people in this area. We both have a lot of great relationships with people here. And I just thought, like, I just texted you this morning. I said, hey, man, the appointments are low right now. Let's fire up at 5 o'clock and share some great information with some people in our area. Right. And that's what we're doing. And I don't know how the hell this is going to make us commission. And I don't care. And I know you don't either, but you need to reach out there with the true intent of just helping people and in your community. Be the leader, be logical, try to take as much of the craziness out of your emotion, right? Be stable, and people are going to follow your lead. And when this all passes, they're going to continue to follow your lead on whatever it is else that you're doing, right? For me, it's starting a real estate team, and I want people to follow me, and I want it to be some fired up people. I had someone call me the other day, and they were talking like this, and they said, hey, Joe, I'm really interested in being in your team. Can you tell me what it is you're doing? I'm like, listen, I don't think we're going to be a good fit right off the bat. Like, I want you to fire me the hell up when I show up to work, and right now, I feel like going to bed. Like, come on. Yeah, you know me, man. And like, I get it. You're interviewing me too when you come to a team, but dude, you better bring the heat. And I don't even care about your past. But anyway, just be a leader. Be a leader and create influence. But remember that when you become influential, which is what you want to be in your community, you need to use that to help people. Use it to help people grow. Use it to help people's business. Use it to help people who are in need. Use it to help people connect with other people who can help them when you can't help them. But really get out there and be a leader right now. I think there's no better time to do it, man.
Yeah. I think that is always the place that we all aspire, that we should be aspiring to come from, because the genius and the wisdom in that quote, I think it was Gandhi that said it, be the change that you want to see in the world.
Yes.
If everybody just did that, where they selflessly paid it forward.
Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful about what you did with Mariah, because whether you get anything from Mariah or not, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But Mariah, the growth that she experienced as she continues on her journey, it's just natural for us to pay that back in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, yes.
And what's interesting is that, there's also the opposite of that too. When we experience a trauma, or when we feel like somebody did us wrong, we feel like we need to, so whatever cycle starts, whatever cycle we start will continue. And it's kind of like that ripple effect that will continue to reverberate around the universe forever and ever and ever. And so that's why it's so important to do what you're talking about, which is be the lighthouse, be the voice of love, and just love people, like that's really the key.
That's beautiful, man. I think that's a great place to end it.
I think so too. That
well,
feels
bud, complete. I appreciate it.
I appreciate
your time. I'll be talking to you. I love you, my man.
Love you too, brother.
All right. You have a good one. Thanks, guys. And Dean, let me ask you just one last question. Where can these guys find you if they want to look for you on social media?
Yeah, just look me up, Dean DeVries. You can also check out, I'm on Instagram, Dean's List Realtor. Probably two best places.
You're like, that's it. I'm everywhere, baby. You can find me.
That's it. You Google me, baby.
All right, my man. Have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
Brother. Thank you.
Adios.